Welcome to Gambling with an Edge with your hosts Bob Dancer and Richard Munchkin. Bob Dancer is America's premier video poker writer and teacher. He's written 10 books, including Video Poker for the Intelligent Beginner and the best-selling $1 Million Video Poker. He helped develop the computer software Video Poker for Winners, and in 2004 he was inducted into the Video Poker Hall of Fame. Richard Munchkin has been a professional advantage player for over 30 years and is in the Blackjack Hall of Fame. His book, Gambling Wizards, Conversations with the World's Greatest Gamblers, is a testament to the many ways you can succeed at gambling. The goal of the show is that you'll be a more knowledgeable gambler tomorrow than you were yesterday. And now, here are Bob and Richard.
Good evening. Welcome to Gambling with an Edge. I'm Bob Dancer.
And I'm Richard Munchkin.
Our guest tonight is Bill Zender. Bill is a former advantage player. He helps casinos protect themselves from advantage table game players. Smart players study the ways casinos defend themselves. I suspect many of you will be quite surprised at some of Bill's theories. We'll be talking to him in a few minutes. Last week, we compared M-Life to Total Rewards. A listener named Richard emailed us at gamblingwithanedge@gmail.com and said, as there is no M-Life in Atlantic City, officially the relationship between Borgata and M-Life might be of interest. You have opportunity to spend comps from Borgata at M-Life locations. This is not something I knew. I haven't played in Borgata, and nor am I welcome to play at the M-Life properties. But these things are important, and you need to learn each of these things. We thank Richard for pointing this out to us.
Actually, I also received an email. I had mentioned on the show last week that there was an MGM at Foxwoods, and someone got a hold of me to let me know that they also do not use M-Life and that they end up using the Foxwoods system. So, again, MGM is out there in those places, but they're not using the M-Life cards there. So, now, Bob, you were on vacation last week. Where did you go?
I was. Before I do, as background, I need to mention that my wife Shirley and I divorced last year. I've spoken about Shirley many times on this show and written about her, and she was even a guest on this show. And some of you may not have heard that we're no longer together, and so that needs to be mentioned. I published an article called There's Something About Mary a couple of months ago on my website, which you can read, which talks about the circumstances. One of the things mentioned in that article is that I've begun to see a lady named Bonnie. Anyway, I received generous casino offers from Harrah's Cherokee, which is in North Carolina, and Harrah's New Orleans, both of which had to be used prior to June 30th. Use them or lose them. I've never been to North Carolina at all, and it's been several years since I received an email from New Orleans. In addition, Bonnie and I hadn't traveled much together yet, so it seemed a good idea to take Bonnie along on a 3-day trip to Cherokee, and then immediately 3 more days to New Orleans. Over the next 2 weeks, my blog on the Las Vegas Advisor website will be talking about how the Total Reward Slot Club is administered differently in these two Total Rewards locations. To be sure, they're over 90% identical, but capitalizing on that last little bit can be a profitable thing to do. So, while I did spend some time in the casinos, this was primarily a vacation. Harrah's Cherokee is in the Great Smoky Mountain Range, which is part of Appalachia. It is absolutely lovely, at least in June. For some reason I can't entirely explain or justify it, I concluded that going on a zipline adventure would be a good thing for Bonnie and me to do. Now, we're both closer to 70 years old than we are to 80. Excuse me, well, that too, but then we are to 60 even. But we thought we'd go check it out last Friday. So we were too late in the day to do that, but they were quite willing to take our money to make a reservation for Saturday, which they assured us were filling up fast. So they had a video of what it looked like, and everybody in the video was having a great time, which, of course, if they weren't having a great time, they wouldn't make it on the video. But they didn't think we were too old, so I ponied up $100 a piece and told them we'd be back 1 o'clock Saturday. So for the next about 20 hours, Bonnie was in full mumble. She isn't what you'd call an adventuresome lady. She was an adventuresome when she was younger and hasn't gotten more so. However, she felt duty-bound to reimburse me the money if she chickened out. So basically, because of her frugality, she didn't back down. This isn't to say she wasn't scared the whole way, but she kept going. The company we went with was called the Nantahala Gorge Canopy Tours. There'll be a link to that site in next Tuesday's blog. And they do it right. They have 2 guides for up to 10 people. They start you zipping on a 50-foot long line, less than 10 feet off the ground, so you can practice your technique and you can see how safe it is. They give you some short runs from 200 to 800 feet long before you get to the biggie, which is almost a half-mile long and maybe 200 feet off the ground. They evaluate your technique on the shorter zips, making you qualify to go on the long one. And every day, apparently, some people chicken out and don't go on the long one. Bonnie and I both qualified and completed all of the zips. We were both somewhat fearful, but we're glad we decided to be adventurous that day, and we both have T-shirts to prove that we did it. Now, have you ever been zipping, Richard?
I have not. I'm not big on heights. I did an Alaskan cruise, a number of years ago, and my son and my brother went out, but it was raining and cold, and I said, you guys can go without me. So I did not do it.
Yeah, I've wanted to go on that one too. Apparently the big place to do it is in Skagway. And the people who go say, oh, you see all these eagles' nests and all these interesting things. And I go, well, maybe next time. But so far, next time hasn't come for me, but it might now. Now, then we went to New Orleans. And Bonnie never been to New Orleans before. So we did the usual stuff, Preservation Hall, chicory coffee, and beignets at the French Market, and a walking tour of the French Quarter and Bourbon Street, Royal Street, and St. Charles trolley line stuff, that kind of stuff. It was, it's fun. And now we're back in Vegas, ready to concentrate on gambling once more. Did you ever get to New Orleans, Richard?
I used to go quite frequently, but I haven't been in quite a while now. So I like New Orleans, though. It's a great city.
It is. All right, let's talk to Bill Zender. Bill Zender began as a blackjack dealer more than 30 years ago. He's been vice president level executive in casinos. He's run dealing schools and has written extensively. He has worked as an agent for the Nevada Gaming Control Board. He currently consults and lectures primarily about table game protection and casino operations assessment. Bill Zender, welcome to Gambling with an Edge.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Oh, we're doing good. Welcome back.
Good. Oh, it's been 2 years, so
it has
I'm glad
been.
to be back.
Good. Now, on this show, we've spoken about the Phil Ivey case several times now. Ivey, briefly as a recap, because not all of our listeners have heard all the shows, Ivey is arguably the best poker player in the world. He and a female associate talked Crockford's Casino in London into making some changes into their game, which is a game very similar to Baccarat. Critical to their success were several facts. One is that the cards used by Crockford's were edge sortable, which means sharp-eyed players can tell by the back of the card if a card is turned north or south. Another critical element was the casinos let the players turn the cards north or south, or let the players direct the dealer to turn the cards north or south at the start of the 6 shoes. They would look at the cards, and probably if it was a 7, 8, or 9, they turned it one way, and if it was any other card, they turned it the other way. A third critical part is to shuffle the cards. The casinos used a shuffle machine which did not turn the cards. It just kept them. It changed the sequence of the cards, but not whether it was a north or south on top. Now, if you know that the first card is going to be a 7, 8, or 9 before you decide whether to bet on one side or the other, it gives you something like a 7% edge. Now, they were betting 100,000 pounds a hand, which is about $150. Over the weekend, $150,000, and they over the weekend cleared close to $12 million, which of course they haven't collected yet. Crockford's has refused to pay. There are lawsuits going back and forth. Now, Bill Zender, did I misstate the relevant facts of the case? And if not, or even if I did, where are we at today in this situation?
Well, no, you covered it really well with that. One thing I just want to point out is that they, when they do the turn on Baccarat, they turn the 6, 7, 8, and 9 one direction. You left the 6 out.
Okay.
Because the 6 has a very, very slight edge for the player hand, and we see it on top of the shoe. For people who don't understand what sorts are, it's a, and you did explain it really well. It's a blemish or a cut pattern design problem on the card, so that if you turn one card opposite of the other, you could pick it out. And it's kind of like an off and on switch. You do it for 2 types of cards. You couldn't do it for like kings, queens, jack, each individual's rank. You have to do, in this case, 6, 7, 8, 9 one direction, and 5, 4, 3, 2, 0. Then the ace, the opposite direction. If the player, if I'm on the table playing and I've sorted the cards through, and the next time they come out, I look at the front of the shoe, and I look at the card pattern, and let's say I look at the pattern, and I recognize that pattern because I've turned it now. I haven't, but I've had the dealer turn it. I say that's a 6, 7, 8, or 9. Then I bet on the player hand. On the player hand, because I have about a 12% advantage. If I do not see it's a 6, 7, 8, or 9, I see it's a 5 and under, then it's bad for the player's hand, so I bet on the banker's side. And I have about a 5% advantage when I do that. And this is what they were doing going back and forth. Or let me put it this way, from what I understand that they were doing on the table.
Now, Bill, you first wrote about this happening in Las Vegas, I think over a year prior to this happening in London. And I remember when you wrote the article, I was talking to some friends, and we could not believe that this had actually happened. We thought you had made this up as a way of illustrating how someone could try to play the turn on Baccarat. And then it turned out, I just could not imagine that any casino would fall for this. I mean, how stupid are they?
You summed it up. I mean, I was in shock too. And how this all started, if you don't mind me just going into a little bit here, is that I got a call from a surveillance director who was at Paris. And he said to me, something's happening here, and I really don't like it. And he was also in communication with Willie Ellison at the time. And so Willie and I put our heads together and said, well, what sounds like a sword play to us? And he explained what cards were being turned, and he saw when they were being turned face up, so he knew which cards were being turned by the dealer. And so I said, well, just sitting in front of my computer, I did a spreadsheet real quick. I said, that's about a 6.8, 6.7, 8, or whatever it is, advantage when you're betting off the top. And what really shocked me is the director of surveillance there at Paris said, they're not doing it off the top, meaning reading it off the top of the shoe. They were actually doing it when the cards, all 4 cards were on the layout. And I said, but
all
they had
4?
a bet first. All 4. I said, they had a bet? No. He goes, they also talked to the casino and letting them bet after the 4 cards were face down on the layout. Now, if I look at those cards face down, there's going to get the 2 hands. And the combinations, let's use the 6 through 9 being the high cards and the 5 and under being low cards. So you have a high combination, a low combination, you have a high-low combination. Well, if you go and you look and see how many naturals and how many standing hands are on, high-low trumps high and low. And high would trump low. So if I'm looking at the cards and I see the player has a high-low and the bank has a high, I'm betting on the player. And it's a little more complicated than that. Matter of fact, I sent my assumptions to Elliot Jacobson, and Elliot ran through a simulator, and he came back and said, Bill, he goes, you can actually bet the tie hands in certain conditions. And he showed where the player advantage on that would be somewhere around 21%. Now, that's not what they did in England. That's not what Phil Ivey did. Phil Ivey just read the cards off the top. But here in Las Vegas, that incident you're talking about, this team's played for 10.5 months here, hit 5 casinos, and I understand conservatively the number they want from the casino is $1.8 million.
I just can't imagine. I mean, and then after you wrote about it, and then they still allowed it to go on over in London. I mean, do they just not pay attention to what goes on in the U.S. over there?
Richard, it's the old, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And I know a lot of your listeners are Advantage players, and they really, a lot of times when I expose things, there's only a handful of people believe it, or listen to it, or read it, or understand it. Because I can name, off the top of my head, 6 casinos that were hit with the same situation after not only did I release information, Willie Ellison released it with his Catwalk magazine, and Elliot Jacobson released it on his website. So there was information out there, just people don't choose to read it. That's all there is to it.
There's lawsuits going on now. How important is this lawsuit to English gambling and to American gambling?
Well, I'm not really sure how important it would be. There's a lot of issues out there, like internet gambling, I think, is going to be more important. But let's just talk about table games and baccarat. Is that I think this is going to be the biggest litigation in the history of gaming, as far as a person, did they win legitimately or did they cheat the house? And this is going to come to a head, and I think the total linchpin on here is how the English courts are going to interpret whether this is a theft by deception or not. My personal feeling, is an advantage play. There's nothing wrong with advantage play.
Advantage play meaning not illegal.
Yes, they use the cards provided by the casino, and they use the procedure provided by the casino in which to beat the house.
And the casino will argue, well, you tricked us and you lied to us about how superstitious you were and blah, 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 whatever they argue.
It just doesn't seem like an argument. But this is actually a really disturbing trend where casinos just free roll the players and go, well, if he loses, great. And if he wins, we just won't pay him. I mean, this isn't the first time that casinos have refused to pay advantage players.
This is the second case in this situation. The first one I know about was the Foxwoods in Connecticut. But with Foxwoods, their gaming commission, their decision that was handed down by the gaming commission, and from what I understand, it was after everybody had decided what was going to happen, meaning the players in the casino, but was that they didn't do anything wrong by requesting the dealer to turn the cards. What they did was they actually socially engineered the casino to allow them to bet and pass post after the cards were out on the table.
Right, but so did they end up getting paid in the Foxwoods case?
No.
But there was also the case last year in the Golden Nugget in Atlantic City where the pre-sorted cards in baccarat were not shuffled by the casino, and the players took a while to get paid. The casino refused to pay them, but then eventually.
Right. Yeah, this is the kind of thing I've heard of hole card players too, where the casino just steals the money and says we're not paying. Now, so far, there's one case I don't know if they've been paid yet or not. I mean, but I think it's really a disturbing trend for the casinos to just sort of take this shot and see if they can get away with it.
Well, Richard, the thing is that Native American casinos are going to have a little bit more latitude in what they can do.
Yes.
Than any of the state casinos. But when I was at the Gaming Control Board, now again that's like Stone Age. It's been like over 30 years ago as an agent. But what we did was, if the casino took money away from a player, example, let's say they watch a player reach over, he's playing craps. He reaches next to him and takes $100 from the guy standing next to him. If the casino walks over and takes the money away from the guy and gives it back to the other player, the casino's actually committed a theft. The only one that can take that money away from that person is a member of law enforcement. So if a casino were to take the winnings away from a player, then that's actually a theft. If they hold them or freeze them, it's a different story. Waiting for someone from law enforcement.
I had a friend who just a few weeks ago, he had played a hole card game, and he walked with the chips, and he came in a few days later and tried to cash some of the chips. And the casino manager came out and said, I'm not paying you. I'm not giving you a receipt. I'm not giving you your chips back. Take it up with gaming.
Then you take it up with gaming, but that's a theft.
Well, that isn't what the gaming control agent said when he got there. I mean, the gaming agent did side with the player, but he said basically there had to be an investigation and it would take 90 days, and who knows.
Was this in Las Vegas?
Yeah, in Las Vegas.
Well, okay, so I assume your friend started the 90 days and said, all right, start doing the investigation.
Yeah, of course. And I'm sure he's called Bob Nersessian too to see if he, has a lawsuit. But I just think it's a disturbing trend. That was my point. That casinos are starting to take this shot, and it seems like they need to be punished in some way somebody needs an example made of them to get them to stop doing this, because it should be illegal what they're doing.
Well, so far in the United States, it is illegal.
Well, but it hasn't stopped them from doing it.
Well, I mean, the case of not being paid, I assume you were talking about a Michigan Indian casino, and then Bill mentioned that those casinos have slightly different rules, and they enforce themselves. So, but of mainstream United States casinos, this is rare that it happens.
Yeah, it's rare, but it does happen.
All right. Let's change subjects.
Yeah,
Bill.
actually, I wanted to ask you more about being a gaming agent, Bill.
Okay.
What was that like? What was sort of a daily? What was a day like in the life of gaming agent?
30 years ago.
Well, 30 years ago. But were you called out like every day? Was there always something you were being called to investigate?
Well, I worked both the Las Vegas office and the Reno office. It was like night and day. Las Vegas office, I'd get like about 12, 15 cases a month, where the Reno office, I got 12 or 15 cases in 6 months. It's a little bit slower, but when I say cases, what did we do? I was with the enforcement division. That's the law enforcement branch of the Gaming Control Board. And what we did was, one, we made sure that the casino stayed in compliance. Two, we did tax counts on slot machines and table games at least once a quarter, which we're not required, which I don't believe enforcement's required to do anymore. We'd handle customer complaints. The guy would say, well, I put 3 coins in the slot machine, only 2 were accepted, I hit the jackpot, now they won't pay me. And we would go out on those calls and we'd basically investigate and hand down what our opinion was. And of course, the player is Bob knows. I think you've gone through this process before. The players know that they have the right to appeal, and then they can go to a hearing. And then we did law enforcement. We did both proactive and reactive. Reactive is where you get a call from, the XYZ casino. We've got a guy down here try to pass post and roulette. So we go down, we look at the video, we take, statements from the employees, and we, make the decision whether to arrest or not. Take the person into custody, actually take him down to the jail, whatever jurisdiction it was, and we put him in jail, and then we would go ahead and fill out a criminal complaint and sign it and make sure that it was ready for arraignment. We'd also then help with the district attorney putting together the case on the prosecute, just like any other law enforcement agency would. Again, we would testify in court, as to the case as need be. When I say proactive, we actually did, we started doing some undercover work. And the first undercover team I was involved with was back in 81, called ourselves Team D. And they've called it different names, but we used to go out and follow known cheaters around and, sit on them and wait for them to come in and cheat, and we'd grab them up, stuff like that.
Huh. are many cases prosecuted? I mean, of people caught cheating?
Well, it just depends. There's a lot of things that go into that. It depends on how good the case is. Love to have videotape, love to have witnesses. There's a lot of times things are iffy. If you're trying to get a case, gaming case here in Clark County, the district attorney on the morning of the preliminary has got 12 cases, and he looks at you and says, "This thing isn't going to fly because it's the weakest case he's got in his folder." If you've got a pretty good case there, and I used to be able to argue with these guys, they'd say, "Well, I don't think we're just going to dismiss this." I go, "Have you read it yet? Have you gone over it?" I'd give them the higher points, and then they go, "Okay, we'll go through with arraignment." So yeah, it would be iffy up to that point. But usually with gaming cases, you don't push forward on them unless you have plenty of evidence.
I've tried to get statistics out of gaming. I wanted to write an article actually about this subject. And boy, I just can't get anything out of them, which I would think it should be a matter of public record. But, they just don't want to give up any information.
Yeah, we never really kept track of it. You personally kept track of what you did and that. But, if anything, the district attorney's office, here in Clark County, the district attorney office handles all the state cases. So you might be able to get a hold of the district attorney's office and get the information from them.
Well, yeah, but would they also have how many arrests were made, or would that have to come from gaming?
Well, you got to remember, if they arrest someone, they're going to dismiss the case, or they're going to go forward and prosecute it.
All right, very good. Let's change subjects again. 7 years ago, you published a book called Advantage Play for the Casino Executive. What is that book about, and is there a value to players studying this book?
Well, that was the book started as a continuance for the first book I wrote in that area, which was Card Counting for the Casino Executive. And I wrote that book in '90. Now we're going to 2000, and I think that's 2006 when the Advantage Play book came out. Was it? Somebody said, "Well, you need to update your card counting book." And I went back and looked at it, and basically all the information in it's the same. It was the same in '90 as in 2000 will be in 2020. The thing about it was that I felt that we needed to take it further into the realm of advantage play. And see, to me, I always like to separate card counting from advantage play when we talk blackjack, because to me, card counting is like entry level, and advantage play is more advanced. But to answer your question, would it be good for the players to read? I would suggest for the beginning advantage player, it would probably be good to read. Just like if I was going to learn how to count cards, picking up Ed Thorpe's book or Lawrence Revere's book would be, a good foundation. The information in there, probably about 60% of it you could use today, and there's a lot of obsolete information because things change, especially in the area of advantage play. Changes like, almost quarterly.
So, actually, just as someone who's read the book, I definitely would recommend it to people who are getting into advantage play. Yeah, I think it is a good book for them to read. You've been doing these seminars now around the country, and what do you cover in the seminars? Well, and are players allowed to attend the seminars if they want?
I tell you what, I don't allow players in the seminars, and the reason for that is that if I was going to do something for the players, I would say, okay, here's something for the players, because casino people are very suspicious about what goes on. You think advantage players are suspicious? Casinos are even worse, and so casino people don't want a stranger in with them sitting in the seminars. So I break them up. There's absolutely no one that's not in the industry, or they have to be at least a regulatory or something like that. The seminars I put on right now, what's hot is the cost of table games promotions. I get a lot of demand for that, and then I still put together the 2-day table games tactics class, which goes into card counting, advantage play, casino mathematics, and in cheating. It relates to the cheating portion. I do a lot of stuff with the different casinos where I go out and I'll do a one-day session, which is kind of the watered-down version of the two-day table games tactics. And that one I do for floor supervisors and, surveillance operators, pit managers. That the two-day table games tactics is quite advanced, and that's more for your executives or, your department heads, so on and so forth.
Are the department heads, presumably they're not into the nuts and bolts of the game, so it would have to be something, I mean, they're supervisors more than they're actually hands-on decision makers, are they not?
Well, what I do with when I step it up to that portion, because if I've got a guy running table games, he better know table games. If I've got a VP casino operations, he better have a strong understanding of table games. And the thing is a lot of it is the math behind. Like when I do a half a day on card counting, and half of that class is establishing house advantage, and just talking about why the game of 21 wins. And then the second half of that, we talk about card counting. And you guys know me, I emphasize that there's too much fear in the industry. We need to start to forget about card counters almost. We'd be better off just forgetting about them and dealing to the masses, the people that you actually make money off of. But in those classes, I do structure them for the executives. We go to the numbers.
So let's talk more about this forgetting about card counters. Back in the early 90s, I was a low-level card counter. I did play at the Aladdin. You were a vice president at that point. And I was allowed to spread my bet up to a certain amount, and I was allowed to play. Maybe I wasn't as good as I thought I was, but I was allowed to play. And on an extended basis. Now, other casinos would have kicked me out for the same action. So how is your philosophy on what casinos should do in terms of blackjack counters different from other casinos?
Well, a lot of casinos look at anybody who can count cards as being a threat. And, I explain that picking up a book and reading it, or reading a magazine article, or even buying your software, and practicing at home does not give you the tools you need to make money in the long run. And what Bob, you were just talking about back at the Aladdin, is that what we realized, because the whole core of my group there were, had counted cards professionally at some time, and we knew that the only persons that we should worry about are the teams and the people who are betting substantial amounts of money. If you remember, if you only played red and green chips, $5 and $25 chips, you could spread 5 to 50, 5 to 100 on the six-deck shoe, and we wouldn't even blink an eye. And the reason why is I knew that the person going from 5 to 50 in my double-deck game, 5 to 100 in my six-deck shoe, was only making maybe about $8 to $10 an hour. And most people playing low limits, I also knew, make mistakes. This takes one mistake to wipe out a whole hour's worth of earnings. So to me, it wasn't a threat. And I also have, again, I did this for a living for a little while. I've got a soft spot for card counters at that level. And, I figured what was good for the goose is good for the gander. We would just turn our backs on the low-level people. Most of your casinos nowadays, they think anybody comes in, if he's a card counter, we got to run him out of here. And you'll see that, like, with some of the publications are out right now and information travel around. You've got a guy who walks in a casino and he just gets lucky, but he looks like a card counter. He gets a label of card counter, and he ends up getting backed off in a number of casinos because nobody wants to nobody wants to take the time to actually assess his play. That's the thing that kind of bothers me. So yeah, there are casinos that are both. One is that they're backing people off too quickly, and they're backing people off that aren't even counting cards.
What about, how do you feel about these guys who are getting backed off from playing craps because the casinos are worried about dice control?
Well, I'm not a big rhythm rolling fan. I still haven't seen the proof. There might be I don't know, maybe there's half a dozen guys in the country that, on the right conditions and the right table, might be able to shave a little bit off the advantage, maybe even gain a slight advantage on the come out rolls, by killing this, A6 on a control throw. But it's few and far between, and I think it's just they read an article, the casinos read an article about it, and they're in fear of it. I would have no fear at all. The only thing I would tell the guys, say, do me a favor, if you're going to set the dice, do it quickly and let's move the game along.
You mentioned that the hot thing, or the thing that everybody's interested in now in your seminars, are the promotions. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
One of the biggest problems we have in the industry, you have to remember, I've played both sides of the table, but my heart's on the inside. My heart's in the games on the casino side. One of the biggest problems right now in the casino industry is that nobody knows the costs. And they put together promotions, and they basically give the house away. And so when a highly
nothing wrong with
market, that. Well, for you guys, see, remember I told you where my heart is on the begin with. But I'll give you an example, like the state of Washington right now. If you want to go and play match play, you go up there, you establish yourself as a player, and they give you sheets of it. I mean, it's unbelievable. And they've got the very competitive market. They're very 15-game boutique casinos. And if your casino's having a bad month, the answer is to throw more match play at it. And they don't realize what the costs are. They just look at the piece of paper, and then they can't figure out why they're not winning any money. They're, oh my God, we had a great month as far as drop goes, but we don't, we only won a few $1,000s. But they're actually in a death spiral, and some of these places are going out of business. So there is a midpoint where let's give the players an incentive to come and play, but the casino still has to make money. Now, with all your listeners out there, if you guys really want to get an advantage play, you should just study up heavily in coupon plays and promotionals and see how much money is out there, because there's a lot of low-hanging fruit right now. Still, years and years after we first put in the match play and these other coupons, there's still that low-hanging fruit. You guys can all go out there and pull it down, because people they still don't get it. They just can't do the numbers.
Yeah, well, let's hope that they stay innumerate in the casinos.
Yes, that is. We on this show, we are in favor of low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
The how does back at the Aladdin? It was also the shuffle card was put, I don't know, maybe less than a deck on a 6-deck shoe. It was you cut off very little, much less than anybody else. Your theory appeared to be at the time that more hands per hour was better for the casino's bottom line than protecting the game against a few players who could take advantage of that. Is that still your point of view?
Yeah, it worked really good back then. I don't see where it would change nowadays. It was funny was that what we did there at the Aladdin spawned a lot of other casinos to start moving the cut cards further back. And Bill Burt left, and he went over to Harrah's, and he moved the cut card back as far as management would let him. I think he moved it back to 3/4 of a deck. And then a couple other places went to 1 deck back, and cut off 1 deck on a 6-deck shoe. And the thing about it was it worked. I mean, we held high hold percentages. We won a good piece of the money, and I'm dealing to 99.99% of the people, instead of that 1/100th of the people that that come in or can beat me, and we take that on a case-per-case basis, and that includes letting all the low-limit players, counters come in and play. The thing about it is that anytime you cut off more than 26 cards on a 6-deck shoe, it's because you're paranoid card counting. If you cut off a deck and a half, some places still cut off 2 decks. And so I don't understand. They just can't get past that hump, and they can't see how much money they cost themselves. It's really amazing.
How do you feel about 6 to 5 games, Bill?
I'd say, Richard, I don't care for them, because we're in the adult entertainment business, and people get their thrill on the table games by playing. And if you start taking it to 6-5, you just beat them out of their money faster. Now, with that said, they do hold meaning a couple places. Like you go out to State Line right now, and which is the Prim Valley. Almost all those games are 6-5. Well, they almost have to be that way nowadays because of the fact that they're only going to have people in there for half hour, 45 minutes. And the other time you do it is if you have a party pit where you have the girls in the negligees, because the players there are getting their thrill, not just out of gambling, but looking at the girls. So they're getting the gambling thrill, and you can take a little bit more money from them. But on the whole, I don't like 6-5. I think that too many places are using it on the strip, and I think that if they made the games a little bit more attractive, they'd win a little bit more money.
I think that what they miss, and again, because they just don't understand the math, they see their hold percentage go up, but the net profit goes down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they like to be able to say the game is holding more, but it's not winning more, you know?
Richard, I was doing some work. Another thing I do is I go on a evaluation casinos games, and of course one of my big things is time and motion, get more hands out, and I'm looking at the casino manager, and I'm looking at the table games manager and the VP of casino operations, and they're sitting across from me, and I'm doing an exit meeting, and I noticed that he's not getting it about hold percentage. And I said, what would you rather do, win X amount of money and hold 15%, or hold 2 times the X but only hold 10%? He looked at me and goes, I'd rather hold 15%. And I said, well, you didn't get it. You'll win twice as much money by holding 10% than you would by holding 15%. He goes, I know. But my boss here, if I'm holding 10%, will want to know why I'm not holding 15%. And look at the other guy, in the VP, and he shook and said, yeah, that's true. So you go, well, guys, I'm out of here. Send me my check. I mean, they just weren't listening.
It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
It's really mind-boggling. I mean, I think the casino industry is so strong that they make money in spite of themselves.
I'd say with the highly competitive market right now, they really need to start focusing on how to do this the right way. And years ago, they could get away with being idiots. I mean, I grew up in this industry with some people that were just, imbeciles. They're just in the right place at the right time, and they got a good job. And nowadays, you can't do that. And I think you have to go to the other side. You have to be extremely sharp to make money nowadays.
But you just talked about 2 guys that, obviously they're not, right? But they're out there working.
Well, the lower level one was smart. He knew which side of the bread his butter was on. So he made the right decision given his the constraints. The higher up guy was the one who had the job because he was somebody's brother-in-law.
Probably.
What do you feel about loss rebates? Have they completely gone away? Has it been burned out by Don Johnson, or are they still out there?
Oh, no, there's still a lot out there. I mean, the Don Johnson thing, that was, I sat and talked to him, not at length, but when he was at Willie's show at World Game Protection, and Don cut that deal. And he's not even a good player. And so he had people sitting on the table telling him how to play basic strategy. They would assist him. And the thing was is that he knew that if he could get a deal like that where he's actually what he's doing is he's getting, for every 1 unit he bets at a 5-unit loss limit, he gets 20% of it back. I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure that out. But the thing was is that he went to the dumbest group in Atlantic City and said, I want to do this. And what they did is they accepted it. So then he rolled it up. He goes, next casino, if you want my action, you've got to give me the same deal. And he goes to the next casino. And he went to the final casino he went to was with the late Dennis Gomes working. And Dennis listened to him, threw him out of his office. He goes, if you think I'm going to give you that kind of deal, you're crazy.
Yeah.
Dennis did the numbers.
In a way, it was very much like Phil Ivey. It was social engineering to get the conditions that he wanted, that would give him a big edge.
Of course, and greed is the bait. You want my action? This is what you got to do for me.
At the same time, Don was on this show, and he did get this great deal, but he was also a gambler. It's like if you looked at James Grosjean's theories as to when he should have quit when he had this deal, Don Johnson played much, 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 much further than that, and he got lucky. So,
well, actually, there was more to it than that, too. I mean, my understanding was he had an entourage at the table that would eat up the cards in the negative, in the negative decks, so that the entourage would spread to a bunch of hands when the count was negative and sit out when the count was positive. So he actually was playing a winning game without the loss rebate. I mean, a small winning game, but a winning game nevertheless.
Yeah, and another thing, Richard, they did was they got in a situation where they found a dealer who was actually hopping the corner of the rack with the hole card, and they were kicking it out too. So there's a lot of things that didn't really come to light. I mean, it was more than just a straight loss of discount play.
Thank you, Bill. We very much appreciate you being on our show tonight. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
Well, they can go to my website. It's www.billzender.com, or they can if they want to email me with a question. I answer a lot of questions for the industry. It's WZENDER@AOL.com.
I always like the guy who can't decide if his first name is William or Bill. So he puts his email as W. Zender, and his website is Bill Zender, so he can keep Mama happy and his friends happy at the same time. That's pretty clever.
Yeah, that's what makes the world go round.
All right. Thank you very much. That was very interesting.
Okay, guys. It was enjoyable. Hope we can do this again sometime.
You bet. You got a deal.
Thanks,
okay.
Bill.
All right, bye.
All righty. So, Munch, what did we learn tonight?
Boy, I don't know. We learned
maybe
more
I
about
probably
what's going on with Phil Ivey and more about the Don Johnson story. And
yeah, I think I probably learned more than you. I'm a video poker player, and so I don't get into table games very much, and this is the table game world is the one you live in. So
and I have to say, never underestimate the stupidity of people running casinos. That's really the lesson.
Very good. All righty. So let's talk about our sponsors. The South Point has more than 10,000 video poker games, returning more than 99%. That's more than anyone else. This month through June 30th, players may earn Chevron gas cards at half price. This is for points earned and redeemed within the month of June. Normally, 83.34 points gives you $25 in cash or free play. Now you can earn and redeem that many points, and you get a $50 Chevron gas card. There's a limit of 10 cards, $500, which may be redeemed for the month. But assuming you consider Chevron gas cards to be the same as cash, this is like double points all month long, at least for the first $83,000 you put through the machines. All right, at the Palms, the Friday and Saturday promotion this month is called Slots of Steel. They're going to have winners every Friday and Saturday night, and those players come back on Sunday, June 30th to play in a slot tournament. The winner of that slot tournament earns $52,000 in slot free play. And you earn multiple points, multiple drawing tickets Friday and Saturday nights from 8 to midnight. The Play, Earn, and Win PEW prizes Monday, Wednesday, Friday for the rest of the month will have a booze cruise. So there is vodka in there, there's tequila, but there's also a 4 cubic foot refrigerator, a decanter, certain and some 3 packs of Miller Lite, and various prizes you can redeem your points for. They have a bingo promotion on both slots and video poker, Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, and Sundays, which is all the days of the week that aren't eligible for the Play, Earn, and Win. Now, you fill up a bingo card with various things. Like in video poker, one of the squares is going to be a royal flush, another is going to be 4 kings, etc. You get various prizes. The most lucrative one has been the one for 25 and 50 cent video poker. It's good up to 5 play, and players have estimated it was worth more than 1%. They changed it as of this morning, so now instead of straight flushes, you need a diamond straight flush or a spade straight flush, which significantly increases the difficulty to win or to redeem these things. So the best guess early is it's now worth about 0.5%. But if you're playing it on 9-6 jacks and you have a .25 slot club, in addition to the drawings, you have a positive game, definitely. At videopoker.com, their monthly game, which starts tomorrow, Friday the 24th, is called Super Triple Play. Super Triple Play is a 6-coin per line game, whereas the 6th coin basically doubles the amount of your 4 of a kinds. So on double bonus, where 5 coins for 4 aces and a kicker, you would get 2,000. You play the 6th coin and you get that, and you get 4,000. Or instead of the 250 coins for 4 kings, you get 500 coins. Also, the straight flush goes from 250 to 700 on the 6th coin. If you're playing this game, the strategy is relatively easy to work out using software such as Video Poker for Winners or some of the others who will work out strategies for you. So it does require a different strategy because you do get more for things. All right. Now we have our guest next week will be Reno Ron. Reno Ron's a pseudonym. He's a player who plays a lot in Reno and Las Vegas, and he's basically going to tell us how the games are in Reno for quarter players, dollar players, $5 and higher players, etc., and Reno's and its environments, which would include Sparks and Carson City and Tahoe and etc. So it's quite a bit different there than it is in Las Vegas. So that's going to be next week. In 2 weeks, we have BJ Traveler. He is a Chinese man. I think he's Chinese. He's definitely Asian. And he goes around the world playing table games, mainly blackjack, and various table game promotions. Now, at one time, we have about 1 minute left, Munch. At one time, you interviewed BJ Traveler on your website, didn't you?
Yeah. There's an interview I did with him at richardmunchkin.com. He's been on the show once before.
Yes.
And I think for many card counters, he will kind of blow your mind because many American players think everything revolves around the U.S. games, and what you'll find is that the best games in the world are actually not in the United States, and that there's actually millions of dollars to be won. So it should be a good interview. Although I will warn our listeners, he does have a very thick accent, so you have to kind of be patient and really listen carefully to what he's saying.
And also, he doesn't have an American passport, which gives him an advantage. So we thank you to Bill Zender. Go out and hit lots of royal flushes. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
You've been listening to Gambling with an Edge with your hosts Bob Dancer and Richard Munchkin. Subscribe to the show in iTunes, and episodes will be delivered to you automatically every week. Archived versions of past shows may be found at bobdancer.com and richardmunchkin.com. We welcome emails at gamblingwithanedge@gmail.com. Bob Dancer and Richard Munchkin are both available on Facebook and welcome your questions. The sponsors for the show are the South Point Hotel, Casino and Spa, the M Resort, the Palms Casino Resort, and the website videopoker.com. Join us again next week for another Gambling with an Edge.